Hello, in this video I'd like to share a game with you in my Ryujo. This is the tier 6 Japanese carrier, and so far going up the Japanese aircraft carrier line, it's kind of the weakest one I've come across so far. It's just kind of because it's, well, a bit of an in-between aircraft carrier in that, like the light aircraft carriers, the Hosho and the Zuiho, it doesn't have a lot of aircraft, but unlike them, it's not actually that fast and it's not that manoeuvrable, and it does go up against opponents with decent anti-aircraft guns, so you do tend to lose, well, I tend to lose my aircraft quite quickly in this aircraft carrier. Whereas the tier 7, next one in line, the Ryujo, gets about 70 aircraft, so it doesn't really matter if you lose one or two every strike, because you've got a lot to replace them. Whereas the Ryujo just doesn't have that capability, and then again it goes up against ships like the Cleveland, which are very powerful, at least in terms of anti-aircraft defence. But anyway, I sent my fighters forward. They have spotted a lot of enemy battleships, so I'm sending my bombers in to just launch an initial strike against them. And I was using my fighters to try and lure the enemy fighters away from my bomber. Up against an independence in this match, and well, as you can see, it's clearly gone fighter heavy, so I'm going to be up against it a bit in terms of gaining air superiority. Pull my fighters back to these cruisers and order them to fly over the cruisers. And I was kind of hoping that the anti-aircraft fire coming out here would give my fighters a decent enough advantage that we could do some serious damage to the enemy here. I should also mention that I've moved my aircraft carrier well forward. I like playing my aircraft carriers with very strong anti-aircraft guns, which means that, well, actually the games that I do well in my Japanese aircraft carriers are the ones where enemies try and launch attacks on me, because I'm very good at beating them off. You may see my plan to use my cruisers' anti-aircraft guns, my support, worked out for me. We managed to shoot down a lot of enemy fighters there. Well, sorry, I didn't, but my cruisers did, so overall we've done well here. But my attack on this battleship hasn't gone so well. I've taken fairly heavy losses. My bombers are being intercepted by enemy fighters on the way back here. But, well, we got one bomb on target, which started one fire. But I've still got one lot of torpedo bombers out there, and they're just launching torpedoes and coming back now. Got my fighters back up in the air, and I'm ordering them to attack these enemy fighters. But fortunately for me, they're going to fly, well, almost directly into my anti-aircraft guns if they continue pursuing my bombers, which they didn't. And while this was happening, my last group of torpedo bombers managed to get 2 torpedoes on target. But that didn't really seem worth the casualties we took there. I mean, 2 torpedoes and 1 bomb hit, not really that great. But as kind of a result of this, we've actually managed to shoot down 6 of the enemy fighters. And this enemy fighter squadron doesn't have that much longer to live. Unfortunately, I've traded 8 of my 10 fighters to shoot down these enemy's 12 just by putting them down with an anti-aircraft fire. So it's not great for me. Luckily the Independence also doesn't have a lot of aircraft. I imagine they've probably only got 20 fighters or thereabouts. So the fact that they've lost 12 is already a pretty significant loss for that enemy captain. But having said that, I'm, well, down to 2 fighters remaining, so it's worse for me. I order my dive bombers, to attack this battleship, since it seems fairly isolated and they shouldn't take too many losses getting in there and dropping their bombs off. And I initially actually send my torpedo bombers to attack this battleship after the torpedo bombers have been and gone, just with the hope of causing flooding. But I spot that the enemy fighters are heading in that direction, so I send my torpedo bombers off somewhere else. Decide to leave my dive bombers go through because they're going to get there in time. I spot the enemy dive bombers are clearly heading towards me, which, as I say, I actually don't mind. I'm quite good at defending myself. I send my fighters to intercept the dive bombers, and I've also ordered my anti-aircraft gunners to target the dive bombers. But there's another threat. This cruiser's here. It's going to be able to shoot at me very soon. So I actually ordered my torpedo bombers to go and try and bomb it, but I'm mostly focusing on the dive bombers now as the most immediate threat. You see my anti-aircraft guns open up, and I'm actually starting to move, not because of the dive bombers, but because of the cruiser. I don't want to be here for much longer. And here comes the enemy gunfire. But we're causing pretty heavy casualties on those dive bombers, and those are the enemy aircraft carrier's only offensive strike capacity. And now the enemy fighters have come in fairly close to my aircraft carrier, which means that hopefully soon I'll be able to start getting some decent kills on them. I've actually ordered my fighters back to the carrier just because I want to draw them in within 3.6 kilometers, which is the range of my 25mm anti-aircraft guns. But because I'm running away, it's not going to be that effective. They're already out of the range of my 25mm. So I have just lost all my fighters. But I am continuing to shoot down the enemy fighters, and as I said, they don't have a lot of spare capacity either. And I've been set on fire. I actually let the fire burn for a little while because I'm under pretty well sustained fire from an enemy destroyer. And well, I don't really want to have to put out a fire if it's about to start a second one. But then I really want to get my dive bombers up in the air, so I just have to put the fire out and hope I don't get set on fire anytime soon. See the course I've set here, it's just to try and isolate myself, so I'll be fighting one-on-one against this against the destroyer. I've sent my dive bombers in to attack the destroyer, and they always take a bit of manoeuvring before they can get their bombs off. But we got one hit, did a fair bit of damage. Unfortunately an allied cruiser's come back to help me, but it's at fairly long range, so that cruiser's fire is not all that effective. Well, unfortunately for me, this enemy destroyer is at fairly close range and is very effectively destroying, well, not destroying me yet, but whittling away at my health. I've got my torpedo bombers up in the air and I'm ordering them to do a bit of a cross attack on the enemy ship. I actually order my squadron number 4 into a manual torpedo attack, which I don't usually do, but I felt it was justified in this situation. Just want to get these torpedoes as close to the enemy as possible, but unfortunately I just miss. But my allied cruiser finishes that guy off. Well, I've survived. I'm just on fire, but hopefully that won't be enough to kill me. I can put it out in 14 seconds, so I'm going to survive that. I've got one squadron of torpedo bombers left to do something with, so I send them... Well, I originally was going to send them against the cruiser, but I decided I'll wait and do a big attack. I'll just put the fire out in a few seconds. And well, I see probably the last two enemy fighters coming in, so I decided I'd actually just get all my aircraft to land and rearm, refuel and get back up. That was just me checking, yes, I'm against an independence, and yes, based on the casualties that I've caused, these are almost certainly its last two fighters. So, just to note there, it is possible to win air superiority without really having very effective fighters. Just use anti-aircraft guns. Get kind of lucky here that the enemy fighters go on Squadron 4 when Squadron 3 is kind of just idling nearby. I believe I take a casualty or two, but I do manage to finish off the last enemy fighters with my anti-aircraft guns. And, well, while I've been under a fair bit of pressure this game, which is probably a bit of an understatement, my team's actually been doing pretty well. My big concern at the moment is that I'm on such low hit points that even a dive bomber attack could really kill me quite easily. But I get kind of lucky that the enemy dive bombers, they look like they were coming straight at me, but they seem to have dropped their bombs on the cruiser instead and now heading back. So, since I'm pretty sure I've got air superiority, I'm just going to send all my bombers off against this poor old battleship. Which... it's kind of good because I've been playing this whole game so far and haven't really had a decent strike against the enemy. I mean, I've defended myself pretty well, I've killed a lot of enemy aircraft and managed to win air superiority from... I mean, you don't expect Japanese aircraft carriers with bomber loadouts to essentially win air superiority against an American aircraft carrier with a fighter heavy loadout, but I've managed to do it. So now is my time when I can really capitalise on my bombers and start using them effectively to try and smash the enemy. Unfortunately, well, kind of unfortunately, my team's already done much of the smashing for me, but I'll do what damage I can when I can.
Group 5, we're under attack.
So I'm coming in. I'm starting to use manual dive bomber attacks more often in my Japanese aircraft carriers, but I still don't do it as much as I should. The manual attack is just way more powerful than the automatic attack. And as you see there, with only 4 bombs, I got 0 hits there. This one gets 0 hits, so 8 bombs dropped, no hits. But torpedo bombers coming in. And I'm adjusting the aim just based on the direction this battleship's turning. I want to get my torpedoes hit on the broadside, and it looks like it's going to try turning into them. So yeah, I'm going to get a few hits here. 1, 2, no, just 2, and well, there's 3. 3 hits isn't bad. Not great, but it's, well, it's doubled the amount of torpedoes I've managed to get on target this game, so that's pretty alright. Having said that, I'm sounding like I've had a bad game. I actually do enjoy games like this where I'm just trying to defend myself from air attacks until, well, destroyer attacks are kind of scary, but I'm happy to try and defend myself from them. But I was actually a bit surprised when I saw this result. 4,000 experience, I believe that was times 5. But 183,000 credits, and I'm going to go, well, third on my team, fairly average, shot down a lot of aircraft. Actually, those cruisers didn't shoot down any at all, which is a bit surprising. And then I saw this, and I thought, well, this is where things have gotten odd. I did 34,000 damage with torpedoes and 7,500 with bombs, which is about what you expect. As we know, we shot down a lot of enemy aircraft. But 29,000 flooding damage? Okay, when did that happen? Like, I didn't cause any flooding against that Congo at the end, so it must have been that battleship I shot at right back at the start of the match in that what seemed like a very unsuccessful initial attack. For some reason, that battleship must have just let itself flood for 29,000 damage in the opening moments of the match. And the thing is, that would have actually severely just limited the potential of that battleship to actually participate in the rest of the game. Especially since it was a tier 6 battleship, a New Mexico, which is a very powerful battleship, and it was top tier. And it's taken 29,000 damage from flooding, and probably another 15,000 damage from my torpedoes. So while it didn't seem very effective, that was actually a very effective initial attack, and I just didn't notice it because I was too busy trying to defend myself from enemy fighters and gain any superiority. It's just kind of disappointing that the game ended so soon after I'd finally managed to gain the upper hand over my independence rival. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and maybe you've learned a trick or two on how to kind of win when you're in a less than ideal position in your Japanese aircraft carriers. And I'll see you all next time.